The restaurant glittered like money. Crystal lights, polished silver, laughter that smelled expensive. In the center table sat Nathan Cole, all charm and ego, his arm around his new partner, Brielle, her red dress glowing like a victory flag. Across from them, quiet and dignified, sat Evelyn Shaw, his ex-wife. The invitation had sounded civil. "Let's talk like adults, Evelyn." But this wasn't dinner. It was a stage, and she was the target. Nathan leaned forward, voice dripping with venom. "You know, Eve, I almost forgot how small you look in places like this. I built your life, and you still couldn't fit in it." Brielle laughed softly. The crowd joined in, nervous, cruel. Then Nathan lifted his wine glass, swirling it like a trophy. "To new beginnings," he said, "and to women who know when to stay in their league." With one deliberate motion, he poured the entire glass of red wine down Evelyn's cream dress. The room froze. Gasps, cameras, 1,000 silent judgments. Nathan smiled wider. "Now you look exactly how you should. Stained." But Evelyn didn't flinch, her voice calm as ice. "Be careful what you pour, Nathan. You might drown in it." She stood, eyes dry, posture regal. The same restaurant he thought he owned fell into pin-drop silence as she walked away. None of them knew. She already owned the walls around them. Why would a woman so calm after such humiliation leave without a word, unless she already planned something far more devastating? This is a story of betrayal, humiliation, and quiet resilience that blooms into pow. And this is a story of how a husband invited his ex-wife to dinner just to pour wine on her, unaware she owned the restaurant. And what she did next got him arrested. Hello, family. Welcome back. Before we begin, please click subscribe. Every single click helps us tell stories of courage and truth. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from. Because when we share these stories together, we remind each other that even in pain, we can rise. The laughter in Cole's prime wasn't ordinary, it was curated. Every guest at Nathan Cole's table laughed when he did, paused when he looked away, and raised their glasses on cue. The restaurant glowed beneath golden chandeliers, every light reflecting Nathan's self-made myth. And at the far end of that glittering table sat his ex-wife, Evelyn Shaw, calm, graceful, too still to fit the chaos around her. The invitation had arrived that morning, short, polite, almost impossible to refuse. "Dinner tonight. No drama. Let's talk like adults." A trap disguised as courtesy. Nathan's arm rested around Brielle, his new wife. Her red dress shimmered like warning lights, her laughter high-pitched and hollow. "You look lovely, Evelyn," she said sweetly. "That color. So brave for your age." A few chuckles followed. Nathan smiled without looking at Evelyn. "She tries," he said, "though she's not used to fine dining. Don't mind her silence. She's still learning how to belong." Evelyn's hand stayed still on the tablecloth. Her nails, short, unpainted, contrasted Brielle's gold-tipped claws. The waiter approached to refill glasses. Nathan waved him off. No, I'll do it myself. This one deserves something special." He raised his glass, eyes glinting. "To lessons," he said loudly. "May we all learn when to let go of dead weight." The table burst into obedient laughter. Cameras flashed from another corner, someone recognizing the disgraced ex-wife of the brilliant entrepreneur Nathan Cole. Evelyn's lips parted slightly, not to defend, not to beg, just to breathe. But before a word left her mouth, Nathan leaned forward and poured his full glass of red wine onto her cream dress. The sound was small, just a soft splash, but it cut through every conversation in the room. Gasps rippled. One woman whispered, "Oh my God, he didn't." Another muttered, "Is he insane?" Brielle smiled into her napkin. Nathan grinned, leaning back like a king admiring his cruelty. "Now," he said, voice smooth, "you finally look like you belong in the background." Evelyn froze. Every heartbeat seemed audible. The wine ran down her lap like liquid shame. Yet her eyes, steady, focused, never left his face. For a brief second, Nathan faltered, confused by her calm. Then Evelyn spoke, quiet but sharp enough to slice through his smirk. "You poured the wrong glass, Nathan. I promise. It's you who'll be cleaning up soon." Half the table laughed nervously, unsure if she was joking. Nathan leaned closer, sneering. Still the same mouth. Always talking like you matter. Her hand trembled for just a heartbeat before she folded the napkin neatly and placed it over the stain. "Enjoy your dinner," she whispered. She stood, slowly, deliberately. Her chair didn't scrape. Her footsteps echoed like punctuation marks through marble floors. Cameras followed her exit. Some guests turned their faces away. Others recorded, hungry for scandal. Outside, the night air was crisp. Evelyn paused at the glass doors. Through the reflection, she saw Nathan laughing, head tilted back, basking in applause from people who'd abandoned him the second the spotlight dimmed. She touched the small pendant at her neck, the last gift from her father, and whispered, "You taught me patience, Dad. I'll need it again." Her voice didn't shake. The camera flash from inside caught her reflection just as her eyes hardened, turning grief into focus. Inside, the maitre d' hesitated before clearing the table. He glanced toward the upstairs office. Dark, locked. The office that Nathan believed belonged to the restaurant's silent owner. Up there, behind that door, lay a folder labeled Lunares Group Acquisition. Confidential. Nathan didn't know it yet, but every brick in this restaurant, every plate he touched, every drop of wine he spilled, belonged to her, and she had just given him the rope to hang himself, publicly, legally, and perfectly. The bathroom was silent except for the faint hum of the city below. Evelyn Shaw stood before the long mirror, her reflection a study in contrast, wine-stained silk against flawless poise. The crimson streak down her dress looked almost deliberate now, a mark of defiance disguised as humiliation. She gripped the marble counter, breathing slowly, not in anger, in control. Her father's words echoed like a calm heartbeat in memory. "Never fight in the moment, Eve. People who need attention fight loud. People who win fight later." She blinked, and for a fleeting second, the reflection shifted to a younger Evelyn standing beside Nathan in the same mirror years ago. He'd been broke, anxious, trembling before his first big presentation. She had buttoned his collar, whispered, "You've got this," and given him her savings for that first company pitch. Now that same man had poured wine on her in front of strangers. The emotional drop hit hard, a gut-level ache. Her knuckles whitened. The mirror almost caught the tear that welled, but she blinked it away before it fell. The line between sorrow and strategy blurred. The air itself seemed to change temperature. She reached into her clutch and pulled out her phone. Dozens of missed calls from Harper Miles, her oldest friend. One text stood out. "Eve, you okay? I saw the clip online. It's everywhere." Evelyn's thumb hovered, but she didn't reply. Instead, she opened another folder, hidden inside a dummy shopping app. Password, Lunaris. The screen lit up with documents, purchase agreements, ownership papers, board memos, all tied to Cole's Prime. Her breath steadied. "He really poured wine in my house," she murmured, a faint smile forming. A soft knock interrupted the stillness. The door opened slightly. Lydia, the waitress from earlier, peeked in nervously. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Evelyn turned, her tone gentle but unreadable. "Tell the manager to keep the security footage from tonight. Every angle, every sound." Lydia blinked. Yes, ma'am." "Good." Evelyn's eyes returned to the mirror. "And tell him, the owner will be calling in the morning." Lydia paused, confused, but nodded and left quickly. Evelyn placed her hand against the mirror. The chill of the glass felt grounding. Her lips trembled just once before she whispered, "He thinks he ended me. He has no idea he just reopened my empire." Flashback flashes behind her eyes. Her father in his old apron, running Shaw's table, the restaurant he dreamed of expanding before his death. She remembered the letter he left her, unread until after the divorce. "One day someone will treat you like you're disposable. That day, remember who built your hands and what they're capable of creating again." Her eyes lifted to the mirror again, but this time she smiled. The woman looking back wasn't broken. She was becoming. Tonal downshift for retention calm. Outside, the faint hum of laughter from the dining room carried through the walls. Nathan's laughter. Evelyn exhaled. "Enjoy it while you can, Nathan. The next toast will have my name on it." She smoothed her dress, straightened her shoulders, and walked toward the exit, wine stain glistening like a crimson signature of vengeance. What secret move will Evelyn make first? And how will she turn the very restaurant used to humiliate her into the weapon that destroys him? The city glowed outside Evelyn's penthouse window, soft golden light stretching across the skyline. But inside her apartment felt like a museum of endings. Every frame, every vase, every echo of laughter from another life still haunted the air. She sat at the piano she once bought for Nathan, untouched since the divorce. A layer of dust coated the keys. She pressed one note, the sound thin, hollow. It was the same sound that used to fill their living room when he'd ask her to play while he calculated profits, pretending to listen. Flashback rain fell outside their old home. Evelyn cooked late into the night while Nathan worked at his laptop. His voice, gentle then, drifted across the room. "You believe in me more than I do, Eve." She smiled, placing a plate beside him. "Someone has to." That night she sold her heirloom bracelet, her mother's, so he could register his business license. She never told him. She just wanted to see him rise. Cut back to present. Evelyn's eyes glistened. The bracelet was gone. The man she built was gone. But the lesson remained. Some investments return as lessons, not profit. 2 years later. She waited outside his office with takeout, his favorite Chinese noodles. Inside, laughter spilled through the frosted glass walls. She opened the door quietly. Brielle was sitting on his desk, feeding him from chopsticks. Nathan looked up mid-laugh, frozen. "Eve, what are you doing here?" Evelyn stared at the scene. Food, laughter, her husband, and the woman she had once mentored as his assistant. Her voice barely above a whisper. "I came to bring you dinner. I didn't know you already had one." The moment shattered something permanent. Back in the present, Evelyn's hands trembled. She shut the piano lid softly, refusing tears. Her phone buzzed. A new message from attorney Mason Greer. "Got your file from the old bank. You might want to see what he did with your joint account." Evelyn opened the attachment. Numbers. Transfers. Every one of them authorized by her forged signature. Her pulse spiked. "He used my name to fund his lies." She stood abruptly, pacing. The highs hit fast. Rage, betrayal, disbelief, and then dropped into eerie calm. She whispered to herself, "He forged my trust once. He'll learn what forged power looks like." Her father's voice echoed from another lifetime, soft but commanding. "You have my patience, Eve, but don't mistake patience for surrender. The Shaws never shout. We outlast." The memory ignited something deeper. She looked at her reflection in the window, city lights flickering behind her, like sparks of revenge being born. She grabbed a file from her drawer marked Lunaris Group LLC. Inside, purchase contracts, legal transfers, and her father's old signature, her inheritance of foresight. Her voice steady now. "He built his empire with my name. I'll dismantle it with my silence." The piano note still lingered faintly, vibrating in the air like the last breath of an old life. Evelyn exhaled, calm again. Her eyes, sharp, bright, no longer looked backward. They looked toward tomorrow. What hidden proof will Evelyn uncover next? And how will she use the very evidence of his fraud to take back everything he stole? If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed yet, please, take a second to do it now. Every click, every share, every comment helps us keep telling stories that give strength to women and children who've been broken, forgotten, or silenced. When you subscribe, you're not just supporting a channel. You're standing beside survivors, saying their stories matter. Turn on your notification bell so you never miss a story that could change a life. And in the comments, tell us, where are you watching from and what part of this story spoke to your heart? The night after the dinner humiliation, the city outside Evelyn's condo was wide awake, traffic lights pulsing like restless hearts. But inside, the only light came from her laptop. The red stain on her cream dress hung from a chair nearby, dried now but still glimmering under lamplight. A memory that refused to fade. She sipped cold coffee and stared at her screen, scrolling through files that most people would never see. The name appeared at the top of every page, written in calm black letters. To the world, it was a silent investment firm. To Evelyn, it was her hidden weapon. She typed a password only she knew. A document opened. Line by line, her heartbeat quickened. Property, Cole's Prime Restaurant. Owner, Lunaris Group LLC. Primary Executive Officer, Evelyn Shaw. Her eyes froze on the signature at the bottom, her own notarized 6 months ago. She had signed it quietly through her legal proxy, buying the restaurant out from under Nathan's failing corporation. He never even read the fine print, she whispered. Her voice shook, not from fear, but from dawning realization. The very place where he had humiliated her was already hers. A new email notification popped up from Layla Torres, her discreet accountant. Subject: transfer confirmation, all yours. She clicked it open. Attached was a bank receipt showing Nathan's latest investment deposit, wired straight into her company's account, unaware that he was enriching her while trying to show off to investors. Evelyn covered her mouth, laughing under her breath, a low, disbelieving sound that teetered between heartbreak and satisfaction. He's funding his own downfall. The high spiked. She stood, pacing the room, every step measured, mind racing through what came next. The first spark of her comeback wasn't just revenge, it was precision. She remembered that day 6 months ago in her lawyer's office. Mason Greer had slid the contract across the table. If you want to rebuild, do it quietly, he'd said. Create a shell company, buy what he values most, and wait. She had simply replied, then Lunaris it is. Back in the present, she whispered to herself, I waited long enough. Evelyn sat again, eyes fixed on the monitor. The room grew still, her breathing even. She printed the documents, each page sliding out crisp and white, like pieces of quiet justice. She arranged them neatly in a black folder, her hands steady, her eyes sharp. She turned the laptop toward the city lights as if the skyline itself should witness what she now owned. You tried to ruin me at dinner, she murmured, but you did it inside my restaurant. You humiliated yourself. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mason appeared. Ready to move when you are. We can freeze his accounts by Friday. Evelyn smiled, a calm, lethal curve. Not yet, she said softly. First, I want him to brag one more time. She turned off the lamp, leaving only the city's glow across the folder labeled Cole's Prime. Ownership files. In the darkness, her whisper was almost a vow. Tomorrow, I start serving justice. What public move will Evelyn make next to let Nathan expose himself? Completely unaware that every word, every deal, and every dollar already belongs to her. Morning sunlight poured through Evelyn Shaw's office window, scattering across sleek marble and silver frames. She sat at the head of a long glass table, a woman reborn in silence. The folder labeled Cole's Prime. Ownership files lay open before her, surrounded by crisp documents, coffee cups, and the kind of determination that didn't need volume to make itself known. Across from her sat Mason Greer, her attorney, calm, composed, the kind of man who spoke in legal clauses instead of opinions. Beside him, Layla Torres, forensic accountant with sharp eyes and an even sharper pencil. Andre Pike, her cybersecurity specialist, leaned back in his chair, laptop open, fingers ready to uncover every trace of Nathan's fraud. The quiet buzz of strategy replaced the chaos of humiliation. Mason broke the silence first. You understand, once we go public, this won't just be a scandal. It'll be a collapse. He's forged investor documents, transferred funds under false pretenses, and bragged about ownership he doesn't have. You'll be holding the detonator. Evelyn's tone was soft but unflinching. I'm not here to humiliate him. I'm here to let the truth speak. Layla slid her iPad across the table. There's more. Last week, he used your digital signature to secure another $2.5 million from Phoenix investors. Evelyn looked down, her name in clean blue font, authorizing a deal she never touched. Her jaw tightened. He still thinks I'm too broken to fight back. Andre's voice carried calm danger. We traced the source. His assistant's email logs confirm Brielle typed the contract. I've mirrored everything. When it goes to court, it's open and shut. Evelyn leaned back, folding her hands together. Good, but we won't go to court first. We'll let him build higher. He needs to feel invincible before the fall. Mason nodded slowly. So you want him to walk into his own trap? Her smile was faint, deliberate. Exactly. And I'll make sure every camera is rolling when he does. High emotional peak. Harper Miles, her loyal friend and PR consultant, entered the room carrying a tray of coffee. "I saw last night's video again," she said quietly. "Everyone's laughing at you, Eve. The comments are awful." Evelyn met her eyes calm and unbothered. "Let them laugh. They're watching the opening scene, not the ending." Layla exhaled. "You're colder than you look." Evelyn smiled faintly. "No, I just finally know the difference between emotion and evidence." Andre projected a slide onto the wall, a digital web of Nathan's shell companies, all pointing back to one hub. Evelyn's company, Lunaris Group, sat quietly at the top of the pyramid. Layla whispered almost reverently, "He built everything inside your network without realizing it." Evelyn's eyes gleamed. "That's why we won't need revenge. We'll just let gravity do its job." The room quieted again. The hum of the city outside returned, distant but grounding. Mason gathered the documents into a single folder. "We're ready when you say go." Evelyn rose slowly, adjusting her blazer, her reflection glinting against the glass wall behind her. "Not yet," she said. "Let him host one more dinner. This time the cameras won't be mine. They'll be the world's." She walked toward the window, gazing at the skyline. Her eyes weren't angry. They were patient, lethal in their stillness. How will Evelyn stage Nathan's next public celebration to become the moment that exposes him and make him destroy his own reputation in front of everyone he once impressed? The night of Nathan Cole's grand dinner glowed with expensive promise. Cole's Prime shimmered under golden chandeliers and flashbulbs. Reporters clustered near the velvet rope, murmuring about his new investment expansion. Inside, the atmosphere pulsed with curated charm, the illusion of a man who had already won. Nathan moved through the crowd like a politician on parade, shaking hands, laughing too loud, smiling too wide. "Tonight," he told a reporter, "marks the beginning of something historic. We're expanding the Cole brand globally. Investors love what we're building." Behind his smile sat a secret, the same secret that was about to choke him. Every deal, every Cole property, was technically part of Lunaris Group, the quiet company Evelyn owned in full. In a private office upstairs, Evelyn watched the live stream on her laptop, calm as the woman in a storm who owns the lightning. She wore a soft silver suit, hair pulled back in understated confidence. Beside her sat Mason Greer, scrolling through the online feed, and Andre Pike, monitoring the restaurant's internal security cameras. "He's bragging again," Andre said quietly. "Claims he's finalizing new restaurant contracts worth 8 figures. Evelyn didn't look up. "Good. Let him announce it. The moment he does, every document he signs becomes fraud." Downstairs, Nathan clinked his glass. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "I'm honored to welcome our investors. Tonight we dine in celebration of our empire." A photographer flashed, capturing Brielle's gleaming smile beside him. "Where's Evelyn?" Brielle whispered behind her glossed lips. "You don't think she'll show, do you?" Nathan smirked. "Even if she did, she wouldn't dare breathe in my world again." The doors opened at that exact second. A young waitress, Lydia, entered carrying an envelope. "Delivery for Mr. Cole," she said softly. Nathan frowned. "Now?" "Yes, sir," she said, setting it down before vanishing as quietly as she'd appeared. Inside the envelope was a printed invitation on Lunaris letterhead. "Ownership Review Meeting, 7:00 p.m. Conference Hall, private level." Brielle frowned. "What's this?" Nathan tore the paper. "Irrelevant. Probably some audit nonsense." He crumpled it and tossed it aside. Upstairs, Evelyn watched him do it live on the feed, lips curving faintly. "He just dismissed his own eviction notice," and she said. Mason folded his hands. "You could stop this tonight. A single call, and law enforcement walks in." Evelyn shook her head. "Not yet. He needs one more toast, the one that ends him." Downstairs, Nathan lifted his glass again. "To the empire we built," the investors echoed. "To the empire." But as he turned, one of the restaurant's managers, a man he'd fired months ago, walked in wearing a new name tag. "Operations Director, Lunaris Group." The crowd murmured. Nathan blinked. "What's going on?" The manager simply smiled. "You'll find out soon, Mr. Cole." Upstairs, Evelyn pressed send. Dozens of emails left her outbox simultaneously, contracts, filings, and proof of ownership heading to the city registrar, investors, and the press. Her whisper carried through the quiet room like thunder under silk. He wanted a dinner to celebrate power. I'll give him one to remember defeat. What shocking event will unfold at Nathan's dinner when Evelyn decides to reveal the truth? And how will she ensure every camera captures the exact moment his empire collapses? The dinner crowd glittered under chandelier light. Wine flowed, laughter echoed, and Nathan Cole, still drunk on arrogance, believed the night belonged to him. At his side, Brielle glowed in crimson silk, the same shade of wine he'd poured on Evelyn's dress days earlier. She leaned in, whispering into his ear like poison wrapped in perfume. "You've already won, baby. Everyone here worships you. Even your ex-wife couldn't ruin this if she tried." Nathan smirked. She wouldn't dare show her face here again. But above them, on the restaurant's private floor, Evelyn Shaw watched through the glass partition. The walls of Cole's Prime were lined with tinted panels, and behind one of them sat the real owner, the woman Brielle mocked without knowing she paid her salary. Evelyn's expression was unreadable. Only her fingers moved, typing soft commands into her tablet. Each keystroke activated small details: camera feeds, financial monitors, legal confirmations. Her allies stood behind her, Mason, Layla, and Andre, silent as soldiers waiting for her signal. Downstairs, Brielle waved at a passing waitress. "You!" she called sharply. "Do you people ever learn how to serve?" The waitress turned. It was Lydia, Evelyn's undercover ally. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Lydia said calmly. "Would you like another glass?" Brielle smirked. "Yes, but not too full. I don't want to spill it. Accidents happen when you get too emotional." Her voice carried loud enough for guests nearby to chuckle. Nathan laughed, raising his glass. "You're learning fast, darling. That's how you handle weak women. Teach them their place." Lydia's hands tightened on the tray, but she held her composure. Her earpiece buzzed with Evelyn's quiet voice. "Don't react. Let them speak. The world's about to hear every word." Upstairs, Andre tapped a key. Every microphone hidden in the restaurant's decor, every speaker, every camera, went live. The feed transmitted straight to a private stream prepared for investors and regulators. Back at the table, Brielle leaned forward, voice dripping with disdain. "Nathan, I still can't believe she used to sit here pretending to belong. That poor woman really thought she mattered." Nathan laughed. "Evelyn always thought being quiet made her powerful. Turns out silence just makes you invisible." The laughter rang hollow, but Evelyn heard every syllable. She whispered to Mason, "Record that, every word." Mason nodded. "Already done." Evelyn turned from the glass, walking toward the balcony above the dining hall. The city lights shimmered behind her, reflecting off her calm face. She inhaled deeply, her voice barely above a whisper. "Invisible? Let's see if they can ignore me when their world collapses." Andre checked his watch. "You're sure you want to do this tonight?" Evelyn's answer was simple. "He chose this place. He poured the first glass. I'm just refilling it." Downstairs, Nathan stood to give another toast. Brielle clung to his arm, basking in his spotlight. But from the speakers hidden in the ceiling, a soft voice echoed across the hall. Evelyn's. "I hope the wine tastes familiar, Nathan." The crowd froze. Heads turned. Nathan's smile vanished. Brielle's fingers tightened around her glass as the lights dimmed and the projectors flickered to life, displaying legal documents, ownership transfers, signatures, and the unmistakable logo of Lunaris Group LLC. Evelyn stepped forward through the upstairs doorway, silver suit gleaming in the glow. Calm, unshakable. The dinner had just turned into her stage. What will happen now that Evelyn has revealed herself in front of the entire crowd? And how will she use Nathan's own words to destroy him in real time? The entire restaurant froze. Forks hovered midair. Conversations died like candles blown out by wind. On every wall, projectors displayed legal documents, transfer deeds, ownership certificates, wire receipts, all stamped with the same name, Lunaris Group LLC. And beneath that name, the signature that broke Nathan's composure, Evelyn Shaw. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Reporters shifted forward, cameras blinking red. Nathan's chest rose and fell too fast. "Turn that off," he barked. "Security, cut the feed." But the speakers answered instead, calm and clear. Evelyn's recorded voice. "Mr. Cole, as of this quarter, your company has been operating under assets legally owned by Lunaris Group. Please direct all investor inquiries accordingly." Gasps erupted. Every eye turned toward the staircase where Evelyn appeared, descending slowly. Silver light shimmered off her suit. Every step echoed like a countdown. Brielle's mouth opened, but no sound came. Nathan stumbled forward. "This is a stunt. She's lying. She's—" Micro cliffhanger, 30-second spike. A voice cut him off. Mason Greer's. Calm, resonant, absolute. "Actually, Mr. Cole, I'm her attorney, and you've been using forged signatures for months. Each document you filed under her name is federal fraud." Silence fell harder than thunder. The reporters swarmed, flashes exploding. Evelyn stopped midway down the stairs, eyes steady on Nathan. "You poured wine on me in my restaurant, Nathan. You mocked me under my roof. Now you'll answer under my law." Nathan's face drained of color. His hand gripped the table for balance. "You can't—" Layla Torres stepped forward, holding up a tablet. "Here are the proof logs, time-stamped transfers, forged digital keys, and correspondence between you and Brielle confirming intent." The room gasped again. Brielle's glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on marble. "Nathan," she whispered, "you said everything was in your name." Nathan spun toward her. "Don't you start now. You were part of it." Cameras caught every word. Reporters whispered into microphones. The entire humiliation was unfolding live. Evelyn exhaled quietly. The rage had already burned out days ago. What remained now was precision. She looked around the restaurant, meeting the eyes of stunned guests. "I didn't come for revenge," she said softly. "I came for clarity." Her tone disarmed the room. Even the journalists lowered their cameras, sensing the dignity behind her calm. But then the sound of clicking heels echoed, the arrival of 2 uniformed officers and 1 man in a gray suit. Detective Ross from the Financial Crimes Bureau. He approached Nathan slowly. "Mr. Cole, we have reason to believe you falsified documents for investment fraud and identity theft. Please step aside." Nathan froze, sweat glistening under the golden lights. "You're making a mistake," he stammered. Evelyn turned slightly, her voice a quiet knife. "No, Nathan, you did." As the detective unfolded the arrest warrant, the crowd's murmur swelled again. Reporters lifted their cameras. Flashes painted the scene in bursts of white. Evelyn's eyes stayed fixed on him, not in triumph, but in closure. The man who once controlled every room now stood powerless in hers. Will Nathan's arrogance let him fight back, or will his own forged empire collapse completely when the evidence goes public in the next scene? The same dining hall where Nathan once stood laughing now buzzed with a new energy. The electricity of public reckoning. Cole's Prime was no longer his private playground. It had become a courtroom lit by chandeliers. Reporters lined the walls, their cameras pointed like rifles of truth. Guests whispered, trying to decide whether to stay for the show or flee from the fallout. Evelyn Shaw stood near the head table, the very seat he'd made her feel unworthy of. Now she stood there as its rightful owner, calm, grounded, untouchable. Nathan Cole's voice cracked as he tried to restore order. "Everyone, please. This is a misunderstanding. She's my ex-wife, bitter, vengeful." Evelyn lifted her hand, and the murmurs quieted instantly. Her authority didn't need to shout. It lived in the stillness of her presence. "I'm not bitter, Nathan," she said softly, the microphone amplifying every word. "I'm prepared." Her words carried through the room like controlled thunder. She turned to the audience. "Would anyone like to see what happens when arrogance signs its own arrest warrant?" Andre Pike pressed a button from the control table. Screens around the room came alive, displaying emails. Nathan's emails, boasting about falsified deals, mocking Evelyn's irrelevance, and bragging about how easily he'd stolen her signature for a loan. The guests gasped. Someone whispered, "He's finished." Brielle covered her mouth in horror. "Nathan, tell me this isn't real." Nathan's eyes darted wildly. It's fabricated. She's framing me. But Mason Greer stepped forward, holding a court-stamped folder. Every file has already been verified by the Financial Crimes Bureau, and every asset you bragged about tonight legally belongs to her. The crowd erupted in flashes, reporters shouting, guests whispering, phones recording every angle. Nathan's mask cracked. You can't take this from me, he roared. I built this. Evelyn's reply was measured, cold, devastating. No, Nathan, you built it with my name, my money, and my silence. You mistook restraint for weakness. That's always been your mistake. For a moment, quiet filled the air again. Evelyn lowered the microphone. The world doesn't need another loud man explaining his sins. Tonight, it needs truth. Her eyes softened as she looked around the crowd. If anyone here ever doubted that dignity could survive humiliation, look again. Applause began softly at first, a slow, hesitant ripple that grew into thunder. Even the staff, once afraid to look her in the eye, clapped with relief. Nathan's voice cut through the noise. You think this makes you powerful? He hissed. You'll regret crossing me. Evelyn faced him, her expression steady. No, Nathan, you'll regret crossing the law. A hand landed on his shoulder. Detective Ross. Mr. Cole, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and identity theft. Nathan froze as the handcuffs clicked, a sound that silenced every last whisper in the room. Evelyn watched as he was led away, not triumphant, not angry, just calm. The same calm that once made him mock her, now made everyone else respect her. Her eyes swept the room one final time. Dinner is officially over. What will happen when the cameras follow Nathan's arrest into the public eye? And how will Evelyn turn this public humiliation into her quiet legacy of justice and grace? The next morning, New York woke to headlines that burned across every screen. Husband arrested after pouring wine on ex-wife. She owned the restaurant. Lunarist Group CEO revealed as Evelyn Shaw. Poetic justice at Cole's prime. Clips from the dinner flooded social media. Nathan's arrogant laughter, his red wine humiliation, and the stunned silence when Evelyn's ownership documents filled the screens. Inside her new executive suite, Evelyn sat by the window overlooking the city skyline. The morning sun stretched across the glass table where her allies gathered. Mason, Layla, Andre, and Harper. The world outside hummed with noise, but inside her calm ruled like gravity. Harper's voice broke the silence. Every network wants an interview, Eve. CNN, Morning View, Business Daily. They're all calling this the revenge of the century. Evelyn looked up, eyes steady. Revenge is loud, she said. Truth is quieter, and it lasts longer. Andre turned his laptop toward her. You should see this. On screen, a clip replayed the moment Nathan was handcuffed. The comment section overflowed. Queen energy. She planned this perfectly. Justice in heels. But beneath the praise, a quieter narrative emerged. People asking how she managed it so flawlessly. Mason smiled faintly. They're calling you the silent architect. Evelyn's lips curved. That's fine. Architects don't explain their buildings. They let people walk through them. Layla placed a folder on the table. His accounts have been frozen. The board dissolved the Cole Corporation this morning. Every investor pulled out. Evelyn's hand rested on the folder, but didn't open it. Then it's over, she said softly. But Mason shook his head. Not quite. The press conference is in an hour. They'll expect you to speak. Evelyn turned toward the window again. Down below, reporters and camera crews clustered near the entrance of Lunarist Tower. She could almost feel the heat of the flashes waiting for her name. Emotional drop, for pacing contrast. Her reflection in the glass looked composed, but behind her eyes flickered the echo of the woman from that first dinner. Humiliated, stained, silent. The contrast drew a breath from her chest. She wasn't that woman anymore, but she remembered her. It's strange, she said quietly. They all see power now. None of them saw the patience that built it. Harper smiled softly. Maybe that's the point. They'll see it today. Security knocked. Ma'am, the press is ready. Evelyn stood adjusting her blazer, her posture straight, her voice steady. No podium, she said. just honesty. As she stepped into the elevator, Mason's voice followed her. This will define you, Evelyn. Make it count. The elevator doors slid open to a wall of flashbulbs and microphones. Reporters surged forward shouting her name. Evelyn raised a hand, the gesture elegant and final. I'm not here to celebrate a man's downfall, she said. I'm here to remind the world that silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's strategy. The crowd quieted, cameras still flashing, capturing not revenge, but rebirth. What will Evelyn do next now that the world knows her power? Will she retreat into peace or use her new empire to transform everything he tried to destroy? The sun had barely risen when Evelyn Shaw walked into the boardroom of Lunaris Group. The air was crisp, charged, the kind of silence that follows a storm but still tastes like thunder. Around the long table sat executives, investors, and analysts, all once tied to Nathan Cole's empire. Now they looked to Evelyn. Every news outlet was calling her the woman who owned the man who tried to break her. But she wasn't here for headlines. She was here to build. Let's begin, she said calmly. Mason Greer, seated at her right, pushed forward a new set of documents. Cole Corporation is officially dissolved, he announced. All assets, restaurants, trademarks, and shares now fall under Lunaris Group's authority. Evelyn glanced at the signature lines. Nathan's name had been replaced with hers. It wasn't satisfaction she felt. It was alignment, like the world had finally clicked into place. Layla Torres tapped her pen nervously. Eve, you're trending globally. People are watching what you do next. Do we rebrand Cole's Prime under your name? Evelyn's gaze drifted to the panoramic window overlooking the city. No, she said softly. We won't erase him. We'll overshadow him. She stood and walked to the digital display on the wall. Rename it Prime by Lunaris. Leave his initials in the archive. Every search for him will lead to me. Andre Pike grinned. Cold, efficient, genius. Harper entered with a folder of press coverage. Look at this, she said, handing it over. Every outlet is calling you the calm after cruelty. Evelyn skimmed one headline aloud. The woman who turned humiliation into an empire. Her lips curved faintly. They finally learned that silence has structure. Mason nodded. You've taken back everything he stole and multiplied it. For a moment, Evelyn's voice softened. He used to sit in rooms like this, she said quietly. He thought power meant noise. But power is choice, and I'm done choosing pain. Her tone carried the weight of closure, not bitterness. She signed the final page with a calm hand. Her signature deliberate, clean, final. Across town, news cameras captured a very different image. Nathan Cole leaving the courthouse, face gray, handcuffed, shouting at the reporters. She set me up. She stole everything. The crowd's only reply was silence. The same silence he once mocked her for. Back in the boardroom, Evelyn's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You won, Eve. I hope it was worth it. She stared at it for a second, then deleted it. Winning was never the point, she murmured. Peace is. She turned to her team. We start reconstruction tomorrow. Fair wages, honest leadership, real purpose. I don't want revenge companies. I want redemption companies. As she spoke, sunlight filled the room. Bright, warm, almost symbolic. Let's build something that can't be broken by arrogance ever again. The executives nodded. Harper whispered, This is your empire now. Evelyn smiled, serene and unshakable. No, she said. It's everyone's who was ever underestimated. How will Evelyn use her newfound power to rebuild a moral empire? And what will happen when the world begins to see her not as a victim or avenger, but as a visionary leader? The world saw it first through 100 flashing cameras. Nathan Cole, once the king of charm, was now a man in handcuffs. The marble steps of the courthouse echoed beneath his feet as officers led him past reporters, shouting his name. Nathan, did you forge the contracts? Is it true your ex-wife owns everything? How does it feel to fall from grace? He barked back, desperate. She trapped me. She's vindictive. None of this is real. But his words vanished under the sound of shutters clicking. A symphony of karma. Across the city, the same footage played on television screens, in taxis, and behind glass displays of electronics stores. His humiliation had gone global. Inside Lunaris Group headquarters, Evelyn stood before those screens, silent. The image of Nathan being pushed into the police car flickered across every one of them. She didn't smile. Her eyes only softened. Harper entered with a tablet in hand. Public sentiment flipped overnight. The same people who mocked you now call you an icon of restraint. Evelyn turned slightly. Strange, isn't it? They love the silence they once called weakness. Layla approached, hesitating. Eve, the prosecutors want a statement. They say your testimony could add 10 more years to his sentence. Evelyn's tone remained even. I don't want him destroyed. I just want him accountable. Her words landed like calm thunder. Quiet but final. Mason placed a file on the desk. You could attend the arraignment tomorrow. If you want closure, seeing him there might help. Evelyn looked out the window. Closure doesn't come from watching someone fall. It comes from knowing I'll never have to look back. She walked toward the nearest screen. Nathan's face froze in mid-rant. The man who once commanded rooms now looked small, trapped, utterly powerless. The moment hung heavy. Evelyn reached for the remote and switched the screens off, plunging the office into silence. The noise, the judgment, the chaos, all gone. He spent years trying to make me invisible, she said quietly. Now the whole world can see what arrogance looks like when the mirror breaks. Andre chuckled softly, and they'll never forget it. But Evelyn shook her head. I don't want them to remember him. I want them to remember the lesson. That power without character always eats itself alive. Outside, rain began to fall, washing the city's noise into a dull rhythm. Reporters gathered under umbrellas, waiting for her to step out and give a statement. Harper peeked through the blinds. They're ready for you. Evelyn took a slow breath. Let them wait a little longer. I spent years waiting in silence. Now they can learn what patience feels like. She turned off the last light in the office. The glow from the street lamps reflected in her eyes, calm and resolute. Nathan's world had ended under flashing lights. Hers was just beginning under quiet ones. Justice isn't loud, she whispered. It's steady. The city outside pulsed with her reflection. Not of vengeance, but victory through peace. With Nathan facing the consequences and the world watching, how will Evelyn transform her triumph into legacy and prove that grace, not rage, is the true face of power? The rain had stopped by morning, leaving New York bathed in silver light. Cameras lined the courtyard outside Lunaris Tower, like soldiers awaiting their queen. Reporters murmured about the woman who turned humiliation into empire, the one who destroyed a man without ever raising her voice. Evelyn Shaw stepped out of the black car, umbrella closed, head high. She wore white, not a color of arrogance, but of peace. Every flash that followed her was like lightning surrendering to calm. Mason and Harper flanked her, keeping pace as the press shouted questions. Evelyn, will you testify against Nathan Cole? Do you consider this revenge? What's next for Lunaris Group? She stopped mid-step, turned slightly and faced them. The silence that followed was instant, earned, not demanded. I don't celebrate his downfall, she began, voice steady. I mourn what pride does to people. I forgave Nathan the moment he fell. Not for him, but for me. A reporter called out, Forgive him, after what he did. Evelyn's eyes softened. Forgiveness isn't approval, she said. It's freedom. Holding anger only keeps you in the same room with your pain. I chose to walk out. The crowd went quiet again. Her words cut through the noise more cleanly than any scandal ever could. Inside the tower lobby, staff members applauded quietly as she entered. Many had worked under Nathan, silenced, underpaid, afraid. Now, they stood taller. Evelyn paused, meeting their eyes. We rebuild differently, she said. No intimidation, no exploitation. From now on, Lunaris stands for fairness, not fear. Her statement wasn't dramatic, it was decisive. Later in her private office, she looked out at the wet streets glimmering below. The city reflected itself. 1,000 moving lights. On her desk lay an unopened envelope. Nathan Cole, inmate transfer notice. She hesitated only a moment before sliding it aside. His story ends there, she whispered. Mine doesn't. Harper entered quietly with a list of media requests. Everyone wants an exclusive, Eve. Morning View, World News Tonight. They all want your side. Evelyn smiled faintly. They already have it. It's on every face of every woman who's been told to stay quiet and chose not to. A sudden buzz interrupted them. Her assistant's voice over the intercom. Ma'am, the foundation registration just finalized. The board approved your proposal. Evelyn's expression softened. Good. Announce it. On her monitor, the press release appeared. The Shaw Initiative, Rebuilding Lives, Restoring Dignity, a global program funding small businesses for women and single parents, built from the profits of Lunaris Group. Harper read aloud, teary-eyed. You're turning revenge into renewal. Evelyn smiled gently. No, I'm turning survival into service. As cameras outside flashed again, Evelyn walked to the window, the skyline blazing gold. He tried to make me small, she said softly. But sometimes, breaking something is how you discover what it's made of. Her reflection in the glass looked peaceful now. No longer the woman drenched in wine, but one bathed in light. Now that Evelyn has forgiven and rebuilt, what lasting legacy will she create? And how will her quiet strength become a movement far greater than her revenge? The sun rose gently over the skyline, casting gold across the glass of Lunaris Tower. For the first time in years, Evelyn Shaw felt the morning instead of merely surviving it. Her office, once a place of strategy and tension, was filled with warmth. Fresh lilies on her desk, laughter echoing faintly from the hallways. The world had moved on from the scandal. Nathan Cole was a headline of the past, serving his sentence in quiet anonymity. But Evelyn's name lived everywhere, not as a symbol of revenge, but of rebirth. She stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows, coffee untouched, watching the city she'd once been afraid to face. The view didn't intimidate her anymore. It bowed to her calm. Mason entered with a document. The Shaw Initiative has gone global, he said proudly. 35 small businesses funded, 15 scholarships awarded, and the press calls it the most human foundation of the decade. Evelyn smiled faintly. Then it's working. That's all that matters. Layla joined them, holding a white folder. The board wants to rename the parent company after you, Shaw Industries. Evelyn shook her head. No, leave it as Lunaris. The moon shines without shouting. Let it stay that way. Her words carried the philosophy she had lived. Power without noise. Her assistant appeared at the door. Ma'am, there's a guest waiting, a young woman who says you inspired her. She came from Atlanta to meet you. Evelyn paused. Send her in. The door opened slowly. A nervous 20-something stepped inside, clutching a folder of sketches. Miss Shaw, I watched what you did. I used to be scared to start my business, but your story, it changed me. Evelyn gestured for her to sit. Tell me about your dream. The girl's voice trembled as she spoke about her bakery, her debt, her fear of failure. Evelyn listened quietly, just as her father once had with her. When she finished, Evelyn opened her checkbook and wrote something down. Consider this your first investor, she said. Tears welled in the girl's eyes. Why would you do this for me? Evelyn smiled softly. Because someone once poured wine on me to remind me I was small. I'd rather pour opportunity to remind others they're not. The girl broke down, sobbing into Evelyn's arms. Cameras outside the office caught the moment through the glass. The once humiliated woman now offering grace to another. That evening, Evelyn walked alone to the rooftop garden overlooking the city. Wind brushed her face. The skyline glowed in amber tones. She closed her eyes and whispered, I'm not broken anymore, just quiet. A white scarf fluttered from her hand, the last remnant of the night she was humiliated. She let it drift into the wind. Harper's voice echoed behind her. The press wants your final quote, Eve. What should I tell them? Evelyn turned, her eyes shining under the golden light. Tell them silence can be sharper than vengeance and brighter than pride. As she looked toward the horizon, the rising sun framed her in pure light, the visual opposite of that first cruel dinner. The woman once humiliated in a restaurant now owned an empire built on grace. She didn't just survive the storm, she became its calm. This was no longer a story of betrayal or revenge. It was the story of how a husband invited his ex-wife to dinner just to pour wine on her, unaware she owned the restaurant, and how what she did next turned pain into purpose.